Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to have our good friend Lauren help us with advancing the slides. So if you hear us say slide next, we apologize that it isn't as fluid as some would be, but I'm standing because I'm just ready to just deliver with you all. Plus I've been sitting for a long time, so glad to see all 120 of you all in this room and even more as we go. I am Josh Parker, and I'm going to talk to you in the next slide about some of my influences, but I'm the Director of Programs and Engagement for Unbound Ed, which is an anti-racist organization, but focused on helping educators really understand the intersection of content-aligned curriculum, the standards, as well as equity in how it looks like in the school, from people, policies, practices, and procedures, and everything in the middle. So that's me. I taught in the schools for 10 years, and also was in a central office for a few years before joining Unbound Ed, but been in education for now 15 years, and happy to be on this session with the great Dr. Jemelleh Coes.
He always hypes me up, but truly, I sort of pay him for PR, so that's why he's the best hype.
It's all facts. It's all facts.
I'm Jemelleh Coes. I have been in education for 12 years. 6 of those were directly in the classroom all day, in the language arts and mathematical setting, for all grades, for mostly language arts. Language arts for 8th grade is where my heart lives. I taught in both the special education and general education setting. For the last 6 or so years, I've been in and out of classrooms and guiding teachers in their work. I've also been teaching, a teacher educator for the University of Georgia and Mount Holyoke University, and I still keep my feet in the door in the classrooms because I think it's important to stay connected and as close to the work as I can, just so that you never forget what it's like to be in the classroom. But times change, and it's important to stay connected to current events and current going on. So that's me. I'm so glad to be here with you. I love talking about issues of equity and how we can change the course of education for our students so that we can create a better society for them than the one that has been created for us.
So this is sort of a collage in 2 parts. These are our influences. So when we talk about who we represent, we just wanted to share that with you. And this is, I think, meant to be 2 things: to really introduce you to a deeper part of who we are, but also to let you see that as you engage this work, you have to remember who you're representing in this work. And so the session has already begun with this slide. As we talk about who we represent, I want you to think about, who do you represent when you're getting into this work? So on my side, I have a picture that's on my Twitter. It's been on my Twitter cover forever. And this is when I won Teacher of the Year in 2012. This is my entire middle school class. That was my class that year. You see all these beautiful faces. Some of them now, well, actually many of them have graduated from college, which is kind of crazy because they were only in 7th grade when I was with them. But this is who I represent. I think about the students in the past that I've taught. I think about all the students across the country, but they're in my heart. I have folders right next to me that have letters and cards from them when I won the Teacher of the Year that I keep very close by me. I also have the picture of Frederick Douglass, because my favorite quote and the most inspirational quote for me is that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And so I believe that our hope is actually in the struggle as well as the outcome. If we're struggling towards something better, we're making progress. Then on the other side, you'll see a part of the DC metropolitan area. I call it Prince George's County. That is my hometown, what I represent every day. There might be some people that are in this chat that know about that area. I circle Fort Washington, which is towards the bottom. To see somebody, shout out to PG County. We're everywhere. So whenever we're anywhere, we are everywhere. So I represent PG everywhere I go, even though I live in the Queen City, Charlotte right now with my family, who I also represent. This is my beautiful wife. We're celebrating 13 years together, married today. And those are my two beautiful children, Layla and Joshua. So this is who represents me and who I represent. And so we're all, of course, Jemelleh and I are both executive board members for National Network of State Teachers of the Year. I'll hand it off to Jemelleh now.
So I see some people in the chat room already introducing themselves and their location, and I would love for that to continue as I talk. I think it's important that we create communities not only among the educators that are near you, that you can connect with physically or socially distanced at this moment, but also educators from around the world, and we have many here. So if you would, as I talk, just into the chat, if you would just put your name and your location, anything you want people to know about you so that you can connect beyond this conversation. It might be that you have people right next door in your district that you could connect with. So go ahead and do that as I tell you a little bit about who I represent. So this is me, and that's my family, and my two little girls who keep me busy, and they are brilliant and inquisitive and fun, and they keep me grounded, and they are a huge part of why I do what I do, and they always ask me really good questions, and I love that because it keeps me honest, right? And then there's a picture of me in critical conversations, because I believe that critical conversations are essential. They are essential. It's not an option. They have to occur. And I think they have to occur with lots of different people in lots of different spaces. And that's me engaged in one of those critical conversations. The picture of Georgia, I was born in New York, raised in Georgia, but I have heritage from Guyana. So my parents are immigrants. We get the job done. # Hamilton. Thank you for that, Hamilton. But I now live in Athens, Georgia, with my family. And the last picture that you'll see is at the bottom. And that was on my pilgrimage to Ghana. I love this image because sometimes you think you're going into places as a teacher and you're thinking that you're going to teach, but what we know about teaching is that you do a lot more learning than you do teaching. So on that pilgrimage to Ghana, for me, it was an act of remembering. And when I say remembering, not only was it about thinking back, but also connecting back to parts of me that sometimes can get lost in the shuffle of everyday life here in America, and just connecting to community and values and to each other. So that's what represents me and who I represent.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you for that, Dr. Coes. I love learning about you just as a person. You're a dope person, and also just a great educator. So I'm really glad to learn more about you. And thank you all for putting in the chat where you're from. I see lots of messages popping up. I love the interaction in the chat. You all are ready to go today. And I'm gonna tell you, our time is gonna go by so quickly. You only have 41 minutes left, and we have questions, and we have discrete steps for you. So I'm so excited. And Jemelleh said earlier to put some questions into the Q&A section. And so I see already a couple of questions. Hey, Kathy, say hi to you. And so we're just gonna ask these questions sort of aloud, and sort of, if we have an answer right now, we'll give it. If not, we'll save it. If you wanna type more questions into the Q&A section, then that's great as well. So Aaron Burden says, what advice and insights do you have in designing courses and changing graduation requirements to meaningfully incorporate anti-racism, anti-bias, and cultural competency? That's a really good question, Aaron. What I can say, and I'll speak to this one, Jemelleh, maybe if you want to, we're gonna talk specifically about what part of the work that is. That's part of our 4 things that we're gonna go through. And the advice that I would say would be just to get started. If you already have an idea about what the requirements should be, then start with that and talk to the people that are in the place to make those decisions to start making that happen. Jemelleh, I don't know if you wanted to add to before we get to the second.
No, that's a good place. Start.
Yeah, start.
I also think that, Aaron, figuring out ways to continue learning and designing programming that will stand the test of time. Graduation requirements, designing courses. So think about what courses do you have? What courses do you not really need? Because you know what? A lot of times we've been teaching courses for a long time and they just happen to be in our schools because we think that they are serving some sort of purpose or value, but we need to do an evaluation of those courses and what they are really teaching. So evaluation of courses, I think, is really important.
That's right.
And I think that is especially critical. Now, if you have been teaching, I know a lot of teachers from year to year, they like to bring in their same materials. Now is the moment where you can throw all that out. All those notebooks you have sitting on the shelf that you haven't used, throw them out. All right, get new ones and thinking about ways that you can do it differently.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. The second question, what are the best approaches to address social justice, including diversity, equity, and inclusion between different generations among educators and administrators who hold varying perspectives regarding social justice for all? It's a good question, anonymous attendee. I don't know where to start with that, because I think we do talk about that a lot. But I'll say this, I've been thinking about this recently. How do we make the case to people who come from varying perspectives? Because that's a pretty critical part of this work. Mm-hmm. And I think you start with values, and then you get into stories, and then you finish with solutions. So values, even though they might mean different things such as dedication, commitment, love, if we start there with what we both understand the value to be, no matter where we're coming from, we establish that shared definition of value, then we can start with, okay, now what's my story in connection to this value? Why does social justice, why is it a reflection of this value? What does my story have to do with that? And then finally, if that's my story, and then I hear your story, how can we get to solutions so that the value that we both agree to is something that is shared amongst everyone? So starting with values and sharing that, establishing the shared value, then going into what's my story? Like, how does my story connect to this value, and what's your story? And then how can we bring solutions where there's inconsistency between the value that we share and the experiences that we share? So that's sort of ideas that I have.
Yeah, just to add to that, it would be, and this question, it disappeared. This question was about how do we connect? So so one thing that has been helpful, I think, for a lot of school districts is to converge on a particular piece of literacy, whether it be media or a book or something that everyone can sit with and think about, reflect on, and then come together in discussion. And there are tons of different sorts of readings that you can choose from. There's tons of different movies, and we're going to share some of that with you throughout this conversation. So I think that getting everyone grounded on something, as Josh talked about, it could be values, it could be literacy, like media, whatever it is, ground yourself on something and grow from that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to pause on this question. I'm going to hold it. Anonymous attendee talked about wondering to include social justice in the work of a nonprofit when the leader feels it shouldn't be our work because we are not experts. I want to hold that. We're going to have another question and answer session at the end. Hey, Keisha, how can we support parents in this work? I love it. We're going to talk specifically about that. That's step 4. But we want to get into framing the work now. So the organization of this talk is going to be about what are the 4 pieces that frame the work from an educator's role. And by educator, we don't just mean teacher. We mean anybody in a position to help someone understand something better and to teach. We are all educators when we assume that position. So we're going to now speak specifically to those 4 steps. Jemelleh will handle 2. I will handle 2. After that, we'll have a question and answer. There'll be polls throughout, by the way. So get ready for those polls as we go. Then at the end, we're going to have a call to action and we're going to invite you into even more of the work. So this time is going to go by quickly. Did you want to share something, Dr. J?
Yeah, before we go back, Lauren, can you go back just to framing the work? We, Josh and I want to make sure that our participants all of the attendees understand that the way we talk about this work, we're coming at it with an anti-racist lens. That does not mean that it cannot be attributed to all anti-bias education. So we come at it from an anti-racist lens because there is a primacy of race that is ever present in our society, regardless as to what time it is, what place it is. It's ever present. So we come from it with that lens, but know that this work can be expanded to anti-bias education in other areas as well. All right, thank you. All right, so first off, I'm telling you, this is probably some of the hardest work that you're gonna have to do. So constantly evaluate your role in the system. Constantly evaluate your role in the system. That first means that you must constantly evaluate yourself. And some of us think, oh, I can evaluate myself. I know me, it's all good. I'm ready for the work. We think so until we stop to, one, review our history, two, take an inventory of our past actions and interactions, three, check your blind spots, four, check your feelings, and five, check your privilege. Now I want to turn your attention really quickly to the graphic that you'll see. This is called Johari's window. And what Johari's window tells us is that there are four parts of ourself. There's the open self, where the information about you is what you know, and it's also about what others know. Everybody can see it. It's all of the things about you. Everybody can see and know. Then there's the part that is your hidden self. That is the part that you know about you, but no one else knows about you. Then there's the part there's the blind self. That is the part where other people know this about you, but you have yet to discover it about yourself. And then there's the scariest part, I think, for most of us and all of us, is the unknown self, because it's the part that we don't even know exists and no one else knows exists. I will tell you that I am constantly reflecting on all of these parts of myself, especially when it comes to the Johari's, it's Johari's framework, that when it comes to the blind self, because the blind self is the part where people are actually telling you about yourself. It's the part that you might not be ready to hear. It is the part that is, may say, what you just said is racist, or what you just said is classist, or it is the part that people may whisper about you behind your back, like, he's racist, don't talk to him. It's a scary part, but it's a part that we have to be willing and open to listening to others' interpretations and perceptions of us, because how we show up in this work is extremely important. The unknown self, I will tell you, I hate telling the story just because it takes me back to a place where I am uncomfortable. But I think that there is freedom and transparency, and it's very important to be transparent, especially in this work, because it takes all of us to do it. So recently I was teaching a class, and I've been doing disability work for forever. I've been doing disability work for my entire education career. And in the conversation, I was making a comparison between what it was like to have a disability and what it was like to not have a disability. And I used the term normal. And for some people, they're like, oh, the term normal is no big deal. But it is when you're comparing and trying and in essence, othering disability and what it means to live with a disability. That word just came up. I didn't even know it was a part of me when thinking about disability, but it just came up and it came out, and it was awful. And for my friends in the disability community, when I told them that story, they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I felt so awful about it. And you know what? I needed to feel so awful about it, because what they reminded me is that I'm going to make mistakes in this world, especially as an outsider coming into work. I'm going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean that I stopped showing up, because the next day I needed to have another conversation about disability, and I needed to own up to the mistakes that I had made and the blind spots that I have and the unknown parts of myself that no one else probably knew that I had. But I needed to share that. And I need to continue to do the work. And I say that to you to say that you're gonna make mistakes in this work. There are parts of you that you don't even know have been conditioned in particular ways, and people will tell you about it. Some of it people won't even be able to tell you about, but it's your responsibility to keep showing up in this work and keep checking all of the parts of you as you engage.
So we want to get to our first poll now, in terms of where you all are on this concept of constantly evaluating your role in the system. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Coes. It's very, very personal, and thank you for being vulnerable in that way. So the poll is up now, and the question is, when you think about evaluating your role in the system, how are you doing with that? So go ahead and fill in that poll, and then we'll close it in a little bit. How are you doing? Okay, Lauren, when you're ready to close the poll, you can. And I think here are the results. Okay. So we got a sort of an even distribution. I think everyone is coming in with some awareness. So I do like that. There are some that are regular practice, some that are engaged, inconsistent, and also some that are just starting. This is good. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. J?
No, so here's the thing, everybody started, so that's good.
That's good.
I will say that what you may find is not what you are hoping to find. Continuing to evaluate yourself is long-term, forever work. So just remember that as you engage in this work. So when you start, like we're opening a box that you can't close, that you shouldn't close. You can close it. I recommend that you don't close it. Just keep digging. You'll be better for it, I promise.
That's right. So step one in framing the work is constantly evaluating your role in the system. How am I contributing to the inequity that I'm trying to stop? This is a key point. So I want to just put a period on that. It's very powerful. How am I contributing to the inequity that I'm saying I am against? What is it in myself that's causing this to happen? If more people did just this step, much of the harm that's happened racially in this community, in this society, in this country, in classrooms would be abated or just eliminated. Step one in framing the work, constantly evaluate your role in the system. Now let's get to step two. Step two in this work is strategically choose your goals. Here's the thing. We can talk about a lot of things that we want to change, and there are a lot of things that need to change. I'm all on board for that. I am sort of an abstract random if you believe in Gregoric's learning style. So I can think of so many different things to change. They can randomly come up at any time. But you gotta be sequential and concrete at some point in this work. On the left side is the graphic that Dr. J really opened my eyes to. It talks about how change happens. Working with local groups and networks is one way it happens. Influencing professional practice is another way. Influencing policy, challenging attitudes and beliefs, and support and advocacy for individuals. But all of that has to be centered around a goal. What is it that you want to change in policy, procedure, practice, or even a person that is actually leading to the disparities that we see? I want to say that again. What is the specific person, practice, policy, or procedure that you can start targeting your efforts to so that you can actually start to make some headway here? In our previous panel with John King, who moderated that, a powerful panel, he talked about, and all of us really talked about this idea that we got to zero in on something. The Reverend Barber talked about 20 different things you can do, but you got to pick at least one. Movements die because people talk about a lot of things, but never focus on any one thing. So I want to really challenge and encourage everyone that's listening to both me and Dr. Coes, pick something. Policy, practice, procedure, person. Pick it and then strategically go into it. I want to go back to what Dr. Coes said with evaluating your role in the system. When you evaluate your role in the system, by the way, you might be that person that needs to change, possibly, right? But when you evaluate your role in the system, what's going to inevitably happen is you're going to center on a procedure or a practice or a policy that you either aren't stopping or are perpetuating. Mm-hmm. That is where the change happens. We must be strategic about how we choose our goals. I gave some examples that are on this slide. I only speak to a couple because of time, but I want to keep rolling in this way. So, policy. One example of policy that you can choose to affect and also to change so that more equity is possible is this policy of aligning school attendance zones along socioeconomic lines. Well, if there's a history of redlining, if there's a history of race that has been determined by developers who have rated down a section of the community, but rated up one and has made all those lines happening, then that leads to segregated schools. So if you want to integrate schools in ways that make sense so that resources can be more equitably given and distributed, then that's the policy that you have to go after. Let's go with procedure. Selecting curricula without the input of the community. How many times are curricula chosen that don't reflect or include the lived reality and the true history of the people that are in the seats in our schools? That's a procedure problem. You can say it's policy too, but it's the working out of a policy through specific steps that I'm defining as procedure. If that's the procedure, then choose that. You could say as your goal, we're gonna make the selection of curricula something that includes everyone and that it has to go through this rigorous process with this rubric. We wanna attack the rubric. How do you determine that a curriculum is viable? We're gonna change that so that we can see a more accurate and equitable reflection of reality when it comes to the curriculum. Super, super important. There are people and there are practices also that can get in the way and contribute to inequity, but I really want to emphasize this point. Remember, there are 4 parts to this framing the work, and we're only at part 2. The first one is constantly evaluating your role in the system. The second is strategically choose your goals. Pick something, please. Dr. J, before we go into this poll, is there something else that you want to enter into this conversation? I just want to open up that space.
Yeah, just so when you pick something, after you've picked that thing, be intentional about it and learning about it and engaging with it. But also know that if that thing changes, the thing can change. It doesn't need to change every day. It doesn't need to change every week. You want to be as focused as you can, but if you need to change that thing, you can change that thing because different moments call for different things. Right. So make sure that you have a strategy in place for when you choose the thing that you will focus on. And also just remembering we are all participating in this system. We are all participating all the time.
That's right.
So just be thinking about how you dismantle that in your particular area. So
Can I say something real quick, talk to Dr. J too? You know, when I think about this, Tammy, I believe, has talked about voter suppression. I'm starting to think about professional development suppression, right? Like what if a policy or procedure or practice is that you are given professional development that has no mention of race involved? That's a racist practice, right? That is something that you can make it your goal to change. I'm going to organize with people. We're going to say in this district, when we do professional development in any space, we're going to mention the importance of racial literacy. That is something that can actually change the system and move us from statute removal to statute implementation, what Reverend Dr. William Barber talked about. So, all right, here's your time. Here's your time. Here's another poll for you. We got 4 polls. Here's poll number 2. How prepared are you to engage in this stage of the work? How prepared do you feel to strategically choose your goal? Pick one of those 5 options. We'll give you about 15 seconds, and then we're going to keep rolling. It's already 2:30 Eastern Time. Okay, we're going to close up the poll. Okay. Okay.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I love that everybody's in a learning and action community. There are some that are confident in their action. And then one says they're not prepared at all. That's a good place. That's awareness. That's really part of step 1, evaluating your role in the system. If you're not prepared at all, then quite possibly you are really perpetuating that system or not stopping it at least. And thankful for all the distribution that's there. But great to be in this spot. So those are the first 2 parts of the work. Now we're going to get into a deeper level. These last 2 are a bit deeper. And so I hand it back to Dr. Coes to talk about this 3rd step.
Is the slide there?
Yes. Do you see it?
I don't. Oh, no. Hold on. Oh, no. Oh, 1 second, y'all. Sorry. Troubleshooting.
No worries.
I'll stop and I'll try to share again.
Okay.
Thanks, Maddie. If you have pop-ups blocked, you may
There we
not
go.
get to the polls. Are you seeing that?
So this slide, here we're going to talk about active engagement and disrupting systems of oppression. Active engagement and disrupting systems of oppression. Okay, huge. You have to do, and I'm going to talk about doing your homework first because it's going to feed into the first point of showing your involvement. You have to do your homework. That means you have to be engaged in communities of learners that are doing anti-racist work. You have to be reading about anti-racist work and systems. You have to understand the history of our people. We have a deep history that is directly connected to what we are seeing every single day. In the panel, I recommended going to the Zen Ed project. I will recommend that to you as well. We have to know our history. Otherwise, we're thinking, why is racism still here? Is racism still a thing? It absolutely is. And if we understand our history, we will understand just how far we need to go in order to dismantle those systems. So do your homework. And also be in community with other people who are doing their homework. Thank you for the plug for Disrupted Text Movement. Show your involvement. This is twofold. One, as you do your work, write all that stuff down. Keep journals, keep logs, keep all of those things so that you can revisit them, because what's going to happen and what's happening with educators right now is that it's like a fire hose, right? We're getting all of this information. There are all of these researchers, there are all of these books, everyone's telling us do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. All of these things are happening. There's no way to consume all of that. And if you are consuming it, it's 20% in, 80% out. Write down the things that you are consuming. How is it connecting to your classroom? What are you thinking about that is going to change your practice? Yes, chronicling your journey. Thank you, Dwayne, for putting it that way. Chronicling your journey. And then after you're chronicling your journey, make sure that you are out there in some way, being intentional about how you're engaging with the work that you've learned. So recently someone asked, is it enough, in a conversation that we have for InStore, we do some, we focus on a movie and we talk about America to Me, which we'll share again at the end of this conversation. And one of the soys asked, is it enough just to be there for your friends of color and to just be in the work without, is that enough to just be there? Not really. We need you to actively do something. When you see something, say something, and also be doing other things, whether it's connecting people to resources, connecting people to people, connecting yourself to people or resources. In connection with that, I want to draw your attention to this graphic, and it is mapping our roles in a social change ecosystem. Some people may say, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know if I feel right yet about going to a protest, or I don't feel right about various aspects of the work. It's all good, because there's space for everyone in this work. You just have to find your space in your role. I will caution you against one thing. So on this graphic, you can see there are guiders, weavers, experimenters, frontline responders, visionaries, builders, caregivers, disruptors, the healers, the storytellers. All of those people are a part of this work. Here's what I will caution you against. Everybody can't be a one thing. And what I'm nervous about, and what I keep seeing, is that a lot of educators, especially white educators, are, oh, they just want to be the healer or the caregiver. We won't need you there right now, okay? We need you actively engaged in the work, and then you can return to your spot as a healer. Remember, these are fluid, and I don't want you to get stuck in one place and feel like you can't be in one place, but read the room, right? Read the room and see what we need. And if you want to support, find that space. It might be being a frontline responder. It might be getting uncomfortable for a little while, right? And then returning to your place as a healer, or as a storyteller, or as a weaver, or as something less in the front lines. But choose your role, know what your role is, and remember that your roles can be fluid, depending on the given situation. So as Josh was talking about, as you strategically choose your goal, also choose your role, okay? Choose your goal, choose your role. Once you've chosen your role, select the right tools, the tools that you will need in order to enact it. Is it social media presence? Is it engaging with other people with wider social media platforms? Is it finding resources? What is it? What are the tools that you'll need to engage? Storytellers, I love when I think about the storytellers. Another part of this could be the artists, storytellers and artists. People who have been protesting in the Black Lives Matter movement, when they painted that mural, there's one in North Carolina, there's one in DC, and I think that there are other places that have the mural. That is their activism. And their activism is so powerful. If that's all that they did that week, they left a grand impact. So for them, their right tools might be paint, all right? And finding people to donate paint for that project. So select the right tools that you need in order to engage in the role that you have chosen, connected with the goal that you have chosen. Remain active continually. Remain active continually. What also makes me nervous is that this work is hard. It is exhausting. It is exhausting for people of color. It is exhausting, I'm sure, for white people. Someone once told me, I am tired, but like, I'm not Black people tired, right? Like, there's a difference, right? But that doesn't discount that there is some exhaustion with all of the work. And it's up to us to remain active. This has to be long-term work. So if you create a plan, I know a lot of people like to use those planners where you use all the cute markers and stuff. I like the cute markers too. Infuse that into your plan. Infuse an anti-racist lens into your plan. Be intentional about it. Write down what your goals are, how you plan to achieve those goals. Because if you write it down, you're more likely to commit to it, all right? So make that commitment for yourself, make that commitment for your students, make that commitment for the society that we want to see change in.
Hey, Dr. J, before we get to this third poll, I really love how you have framed this around choosing your role as well as choosing a goal. That was really powerful to me. And I thought about on this chart, if there was something I could add to it, maybe one role is a step backer. A step backer. Here's what that means. Maybe if you've been occupying a space that a person that's Black or brown should be occupying, it might be time for you to step back. Like that's a role too. If there is a promotion opportunity that you know a Black or brown person is going for or potentially will be better for, that you know based on your privilege you could get, it might be time for you to step back. If you actually are occupying that role now, it might be time for you to step back and to give birth in a wide space to traditionally minoritized people, such as women that are Black and brown, trans, all the different people who typically do not have the opportunity to flourish. A role that you might take would be to step back, share your platform, and allow them to speak into spaces that you are also in. So I think about that, choose your goal, choose your role, and then also engage your talent. You might be someone who's bookish, who's book smart, who can write scholarship around this. Maybe that's how you, as a guide, as a storyteller, you provide scholarship that is related to the abolishment of this particular racist policy, practice, procedure, or even person. So engage from where you are. So those are the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, Dr. J.
Absolutely.
So we can have the next and the third poll coming up now before we get into our fourth framing of the work. And hopefully everybody can see this poll. And please, please, please vote yes, Pat Jordan. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. I didn't say hi to, there's so many people that I could say hi to right now. Monica, what's up? Everybody, Lynn, Maddie, so many, Sydney that I appreciate that's in this chat. How prepared are you to engage in this stage of the work? How prepared do you feel to actively engage and disrupt systems of oppression? Give you about 15 seconds to vote on this continuum. Shout out to Dwayne too. I'm gonna answer your question, Dwayne, specifically about males coming up soon. And Tim as well. Hey, Tim. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Strong.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love the people that we have on this call. Now, let me say, we got 128 people live on this call right now that are all in some stage of getting ready to do this work, which means that next year, right, there's going to be progress. That's what we expect, right? If there's this many people in this many cities and states that are committed and are beginning to learn, aware of our responsibility, participating in a learning or action community, we do expect progress just as people that are in this work with you. And we're here to encourage and support you. So thank you. So constantly evaluate your role in the system. Very important. By the way, again, if you do any one of these four in fidelity, you will be contributing to change. Okay, so constantly evaluate your role in this system. Strategically choose your goal. Actively engage and disrupt systems of oppression. Now we have one last piece. And this step is also important. Transform the community with the community. Transform the community with the community. Who's the community? The education community. You might say there's a scripture that says, who's my neighbor? It's everyone, right? This concept, though, is important because oftentimes when we try to change something or try to help a community, we come in oppressively and almost like colonizers, we try to say, here's the way it should go for you. What we're saying is, don't approach it that way. Talk to someone, talk to students, student voice, talk to the parents, parent voice. Listen to what is really hitting their heart, what is chasing after them in their hearts, and then try to partner with them to stop whatever's chasing them. When you partner with the community to change what's happening to the community, that's when you have synergy. That's organizing work. People, communities, by the way, let me be very clear on this. Black and brown communities aren't deficit, bereft of any talent, and in need of consistent help from everybody to learn how to make their lives better. Communities of Black and brown people are looking for partners to help them realize their own dreams. Black and brown people of all socioeconomic statuses and locations have their own dreams. They want to achieve things. They want their children to go to schools, great schools that they can walk to. They want their children to go to colleges, but more than that, to make enough to live and support their families. These are dreams, by the way, that I would imagine most non-Black and brown people have, which means that there isn't much difference in a community that is non-Black and brown and one that is. There's a humanity, right? So instead of colonizing the efforts of a community, listen to the community, join with the community, and transform together. There are 3 different points that are on this slide that speaks to that. I want to center on the second one. So I want to think about school system. Invite the community into the life cycle of the school system, from hiring to onboarding. Onboarding is a technical term when someone comes into the organization, a new teacher or a new employee, to evaluation of teachers, to grading, and to even the offboarding process when somebody leaves the district. One of the most transformative interviews I ever had as a teacher was when I was trying to become a department chair, and they invited all of the students to interview me, along with the principal, along with the teacher. I was like, oh wow, I've never had an interview to be a teacher of a school that included students. That was revolutionary for me. Now, I didn't get the job, so I'm a little mad about that. But it was such a powerful experience. And so I ask you, in what you're doing in your change work, are you involving the community? How are you listening to student voice? How are you listening to the parent voice? As I mentioned on the previous panel, parents are a natural resource. Caregivers are a natural resource. Communities themselves are a natural resource. I'll end with a quote that I've seen in other places, which is, nothing without the community is ever truly for the community. Like, the worst part of tyranny is tyranny for the sake of those that I'm saying need to be different. And that's sort of a C.S. Lewis quote. So how are you engaging with the community in the transformation process? So I want to stop here, invite Dr. J to say anything before we give our last poll, in with Q&A and other thoughts as well.
Yeah, so we are actually running very short on time,
Okay.
but I would like to connect with what you're saying here, Josh, with transforming the community with the community. Now, hopefully everyone or people are starting to do that work within themselves, and they are recognizing that their privilege is a very real thing. Mm-hmm. Your privilege Whether it is your white privilege, your able privilege, your gender privilege, your gender identity, whatever your privilege is, it's real. You have to use your privilege. Stop sitting on it. What are we hoarding privilege for? It doesn't make any sense to hoard your privilege. Use your privilege for the community, to engage in communities, to help uplift communities. As Josh said, like there are no movements that move forward without people using their privilege.
That's right.
So we need everyone to be using their privilege in whatever ways they can.
That's right.
So there's no need to hoard. Use it, and use it a lot.
That's right. That's right. So since we're running low on time, we won't do the next poll. And I will really just start to continue through the presentation. We might answer one of the questions. If we don't get to your question, we're going to try to answer it via email. We'll give you an opportunity for that. Our call to action is very simple. Pick one. Pick one of the four that we talked about, anyone. If you want to pick all four, that's completely fine as well. I recommend you starting with one, however. You don't want to spread yourself so thin, trying to do everything that nothing gets accomplished. So pick one of the steps that we talked about. Evaluate your role in the system and speak about it. Choose specifically the goals that you're looking for. Strategically choose those goals. And even beyond that call to action, just engage yourself in actively engaging and disrupting systems of oppression and transform the community with the community. Our call to action to everybody on this chat, every single person, pick at least one of the four categories that we talked about and then put it into practice. So we're going to go into the next piece, which I believe is questions. And I really just wanted to answer Dwayne's question, but I think that just really, it really takes more time to answer that question than we have. So I want to possibly respond to him offline. So please, if you want to have your question answered as well, please email lauren@nstoy.org and we'll try to get back to you with your questions. But I did want to speak to a question that came up 2 times, one in the chat and one that came over from Tim Newbert. Thanks, Tim, for passing along Karen's question. She says, Jemelleh, how do I find like-minded peeps in my community when I do not work in a school system? How do I find the like-minded folks? And that's a really good question. Jemelleh, you have any thoughts to that?
So what I find is to find social media. If you use social media, find the spaces where people are connecting via social media. I personally love Twitter chats, and Twitter chats help get me connected to other educators that after I'm in a conversation with them via Twitter chat, I may continue a conversation later on with them. So yeah, that I think that's how I find my communities.
That's a really good start. I'll also say someone had mentioned Nextdoor app. All these different neighborhood level apps do have people, and you can find some pretty disturbing people, but you can also find some like-minded people there. I start talking, start speaking, start standing, and you'll find that as you stand, other people are waiting for you to stand and join themselves to you. Facebook groups, any number of things can get you into that particular system. So we're gonna kind of speed through. We have a couple minutes left to the next slide. And this one I'm pretty excited about. This is the invitation to more. So I'm gonna say this again for everybody that's on this call. Okay, email lauren@nnstoy.org. That's National Network of State Teachers of the Year. That's our organization. Jemelleh and I are both executive board members. We are watching inside our organization, other teachers of the year and other teachers in general. We are looking at the documentary by Stars called America to Me. We look at 2 episodes every 2 weeks, and then we discuss the implications of the episode on what we do. I'm sure that if you have a Star subscription, you can actually access it on demand. The entire series is available on purchase on Amazon for about $13 every episode. But we're gonna be discussing episodes 5 and 6 on July 16th. If you want to be invited to the discussion, if you want to come and discuss this more, please email Lauren at nnstory.org and put in your title, America to Me. Jemelleh, can you talk a little bit about the InStory social justice and equity resources?
Yeah, sure. So InStory has been doing social justice and equity work for quite some time, and we continue to build our library of resources, and we continue to do, like, we know that it's lifelong work. We know that. So we have started that. We started that work a while back, and we will continue to do that work. And we ask you to, if you're interested in any of the past work that we've done, and you want to continue to follow us into the work that we will do in the future, you can just visit us at the InStory Justice and Equity and Education. There are webinars. There's a social justice book list. There are other articles, resources, short reads. Just a wonderful world of equity resources. So check that out.
Last but not least, register for the 2020 conference, which starts tomorrow. It's 3 days. I can't wait. You're going to have so many great speakers and sessions across those 3 days. It's going to blow your mind. And it is $100 for 3 days of a conference. $100 for 3 days. It's amazing. Please come back to our closing keynote. That is coming up at 3 o'clock. We thank you so much for your time and engagement. Don't forget to email to be involved in the conversation and ask your questions. I thank you, Lauren, for helping us, and shout out to Dr. Jemelleh Coes for helming this with me.
Shout out to you. Thanks, Pilot.
Appreciate you all.